Hi, it's Sean Acor again, and today I want to talk about the science behind how do we create deeper social connection in the midst of social distancing. In my very first study that I did at Harvard, I was looking to see, based upon a series of questions, could I predict who amongst the students in that hyper-competitive environment, in the midst of the challenges that they were experiencing, who would rise to the top in terms of their happiness and their success. I did 1 out of every 6 Harvard students in this study. It's one of the largest studies of happiness that we've ever done at Harvard. I asked them a whole series of questions, and at the end of the study, almost nothing I did was predictive. I thought it was a huge waste of time until I looked at the last metric, the very last metric I put in, which I didn't care about much at the time, which was your social connection score. It was the breadth, the depth, and the meaning in your social relationships. And it was almost a direct correlation with the levels of happiness and success the Harvard students actually had. For those that care, it was a 0.7 correlation between social connection and happiness. That's significantly higher than the connection even between smoking and cancer. So what we started to learn was the greatest predictor of your levels of happiness is actually social connection. The reason why that's so important is that it means that happiness isn't something we can achieve by doing a self-help measure. We can't do it on our own. In fact, the greatest predictor of happiness is other people. So how do you create happiness in the midst of social distancing when we feel like we're further from people around us? One of the most important things in this research is that the idea that social connection is actually the perception of social connection. You could be surrounded by 100 people in your life who all love you so much, but if you don't perceive it, you could feel extraordinarily lonely in the midst of it. But if you perceive the social connection, even a monk sitting in a cave, meditating or praying, that person could actually feel deep social connection as they feel connected to all the people that are in the world around us. It's the perception of social connection that matters. And actually, in the majority of the research I was doing, I didn't know we would ever go into a period of social distancing, but all of my work was actually around how do you create social connection when you're not necessarily with that other person. So one of the largest studies that I've done, and what I would suggest and invite you to get to do as well, is we look to see what would happen if every day you started your day, before you read any of the emails about the fires you need to put out and the bills you need to pay, before you read any of those, the very first thing you did was write a 2-minute email, maximum 2 minutes, otherwise you stop doing it, a 2-minute maximum email praising or thanking one person in your life. Just a short, positive email. For some reason, we were actually finding text messages work better, maybe because it makes people keep them short, but either a text message or an email or a Facebook message, praising or thanking one person in your life. And you try and pick a different person each day for 21 days in a row. Now, everyone around day 8 thinks that they run out of people. They're like, well, that's everyone. That's all my close family and friends, and I wrote to my mom twice. But then the important part comes. Then the important part is your brain has to scan for people in your life that you normally don't think about in terms of social connection. So you start to scan and you start to remember that mentor that was really helpful getting your very first job, or that teacher who meant a lot growing up, or that friend you haven't seen since childhood, or that ex who just had a baby, or the friend who just lost their job, or the high school coach who helped you become the athlete you are today, whatever it is. So you write a 2-minute positive email praising or thanking that person. We find that this is the part where people start to love this even more. So I wrote to a high school English teacher one day. I said, "You were the reason I fell in love with reading. You're the reason I wrote a book. Thank you for changing my life." It took me 45 seconds to type. It took me longer to find that woman's email address online. Once I did that, if you do this if you do this today and for the next 3 days in a row, your brain literally gets addicted to it because you spend all day long thinking about how amazing you were for writing that email in the morning. You're like, I'm the kind of person who does this stuff. And you start to get great emails back. But when I wrote to that high school English teacher, I wrote to her and I spent all day long feeling great for having sent that to her and thinking about what it would be like when she receives it. Even now I'm smiling thinking about sending this email, and that's months, almost a year after I've actually sent it. Then she got it, then she read it to her class, and then she wrote back. And now when I thought about my social connection, my perception of social connection, that woman starts to light up on my mental map of social connection. And suddenly, without having to go out to a restaurant to see my friends, without having to go meet up with people, suddenly my social connection has gotten richer. And because of that, my happiness level rises as well. We find that if you do this for about 3 days in a row, people start thinking, I'm the kind of person who does this. Like when somebody goes to a conference and they exercise in the morning because their kids are not there, they don't have any responsibilities, they're just at a conference in the morning, they go for a run and then they think to themselves, I'm a runner. I run. I totally deserve this pumpkin spice latte. You guys should be running. I'm a runner, right? You start to conceive of yourself as a runner based upon your actions. Your actions change your thought processes, which is why our habits and our behaviors right now are so important, right? Because it changes who we think we are. I did a study at LinkedIn. What we found is if you provide a piece of praise in the morning, it triples the likelihood of you giving praise over the course of the day. It triples the amount of praise you give because you think of yourself as a praise provider. And as a result of that, you triple the number of people that are positively influenced by you simply by writing a 2-minute positive email in the morning. So that's what I would like to invite you to do. If you're feeling socially isolated, if you want greater levels of happiness, if you want one of the greatest buffers against depression, if you want to increase your resilience in times of challenge, if you want to raise your business outcomes, all of that is related to how do we raise our perception of social connection? And you can do that in the next 2 minutes. What I invite you to do is think of somebody you normally don't talk to, or that you normally don't praise, or that you haven't seen in more than a month, and write them a 2-minute text message or email right now, praising them or thanking them for something about how they're related to your life or something they've done for you or about how you're grateful for them. And if you do it, not only will it be one of the best parts of your day, but if you do it for the next 21 days in a row, we find that your social connection score rises to the top 20% of socially connected people in the world. Without going out to see your friends in the midst of social distancing, at the end of this quarantine, you could actually find yourself with deeper social connection than you've ever experienced before.